So have you ever looked at, say, a company logo or maybe even a political symbol and wondered, what stops someone else from just copying it? How do courts actually sort out legal battles over something that looks as simple as, well, a flag? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into this really interesting recent decision from the Madras High Court. A political party's flag became the center of a pretty intense trademark and copyright dispute.
Yeah, so our mission here is to really unpack the specifics from the sources you shared with us. We want to get into how the court actually tackled these claims of infringement. It's kind of a deep dive into how courts look at visual identities, especially when you have these commercial legal ideas meeting the unique world of politics.
And this really matters for you listening because it's just a great example of understanding those really fine lines in intellectual property law. It shows how detailed these legal interpretations can get, even when it seems like, oh, it's just a dispute over two flags. It really brings home why distinctiveness is so important. Okay, so let's jump right in then. The heart of this dispute. We've got the GB Panchayappan Trust on one side, and on the other, actor Vijay's new party, the Tamalaga Vetri Kazhagam, or TVK, and they're clashing over their flags.
Right, and what's fascinating here is the trust, they were the plaintiff, and they claimed the TDK flag was deceptively similar. They specifically pointed to the yellow and red color mix with the three stripes, but here's where it gets a bit more complex. They also argued both groups were involved in, well, what they saw as similar activities, which is interesting, right? A trust versus a political party, not your usual commercial competitors. That really put the court in a tricky spot from the get-go, and they even tried to claim their flag was an artistic work, for copyright protection.
Okay. And TVK, the party, what was their comeback?
Well, they had a pretty strong counter. They basically said, we're not involved in trade or commerce at all, which, is fundamental for trademark claims under the law.
Right. That's a basic requirement.
Exactly. And yeah, they admitted, okay, the colors are similar, but they insisted the total get-up, look, and style, their words were completely different.
So the big question, how did the court handle all this? Let's take trademark first. What really stood out from the sources you shared was the court noting that the word trade itself wasn't actually strictly defined in the Trademark Act. That seems like a big deal. How did that affect things?
Well, that vagueness meant the court didn't actually have to make a final call on whether the trust flag even was a trademark at this early stage. They kind of sidestepped it for the moment. But stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, even if they assumed, just for argument's sake, that it was a trademark, the court suggested that a color scheme, just colors alone, couldn't really be called an essential feature that would genuinely confuse the public.
Okay, so even if the colors matched?
Yeah, they highlighted that the overall look, the whole impression of the flags, was distinct, despite those shared colors. Yeah. It brings up a really important point, doesn't it? It's not just about one color or even a couple of colors together. It's the whole visual package.
Right. So the shared colors weren't enough on their own to cause confusion legally. That really shows how the court looks at the entire picture, not just bits and pieces. Okay, so then what about the copyright claim? That felt like a different kind of argument. The court seemed okay with the idea that the plaintiff's flag could be an artistic work. But even so, there's still a high bar to clear, isn't there? They had to prove substantial copying.
Exactly right. And this is where the court got really meticulous, looking closely at the details. They compared the flags side by side. Okay, both use red or maybe maroon, then yellow in the middle, then red or maroon again at the bottom. So the stripes pattern was similar in color order, but the central designs, the main symbols, were very different.
Okay, what were they?
The plaintiff's flag had a circle, and inside that circle, there was a fish, a leaping tiger, a bow and arrow, and some text as well. The defendant's TDK flag, on the other hand, had an oval shape in the middle, featuring elephants in motion.
Very different images then.
Completely different. So the court looked at that and basically concluded, nope, no substantial copying here. The core elements were distinct.
Okay, makes sense. And then the last claim, the passing off one, this is where they need to show that whole classical trinity, right? Goodwill, misrepresentation, and damage.
That's the one. And on that front, the court found the plaintiff just hadn't established those three things. They didn't prove the necessary reputation, or that TVK was misleading anyone, or that they'd suffered actual damage because of it.
So the claim failed there too.
Pretty much across the board at this interim stage. Yeah, this deep dive really shows us how courts carefully take apart visual elements and apply legal definitions. It just underlines how important distinctiveness is, going way beyond just sharing a couple of colors. And the upshot was the request for an interim injunction was dismissed. The case is adjourned for a later full hearing.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think this case is a really fantastic, concrete example of the detailed ways the law looks at visual identity, how it protects brands or symbols. It shows it's definitely not always as simple as, oh, they use the same colors. There's much more to it. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. What does this case tell us about that really fuzzy line between drawing inspiration and actually infringing on someone else's visual identity? Especially today, in a world just flooded with symbols and logos where everyone's trying so hard to stand out. Where does inspiration, snap, and copying begin?